It's exciting to fall in love and to be in love. And since you're a good and decent guy looking for a good and decent girl, it's crucial that you know how and where to touch a woman appropriately. After all, the last thing you want is to come off as too awkward. But at the same time, if you don't touch her at all, well, it's really hard to grow that attraction. So, it's something you need to handle very carefully. If you're seeking a happy, loving, and lasting relationship with a sweet and kind woman, it's essential that you know how and where to touch her. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about this. By the end of this video, you'll be a pro at it. You're about to discover the best places to touch women and how to do it in an exciting way. Alright, let's talk about the 13 places where women want to be touched. I'll break this down into 2 phases in this video because there really are more than one phase. The first phase is when you're not in a relationship with her. The second phase is when you are in a relationship. There's a dramatic difference between how you can and should touch a woman when you're not in a relationship and when you are. So, let's start with phase 1. Are you following? Sounds good. The first place a woman wants to be touched is her hands. Now, if you're not in a relationship yet, this doesn't mean holding her hand. It's better to save that for when you are in a relationship, but you can still touch her hand. Maybe if you're handing something to her, your hands might lightly touch, something like that. You can absolutely touch her hand, and it will give her butterflies and make her think, wow, he touched me, that's really cute. And then, she'll have to tell all her friends and celebrate for a week. It's legit. So, if you can get your hands to lightly touch, yes, go for it. The second place a woman wants to be touched by a man is her upper arm. There are many occasions when you can simply touch her upper arm gently, maybe showing some understanding or being a bit playful, something like that. The upper arm is a non-threatening, but still totally adorable place you can touch. It's a great starting point when you're trying to overcome that barrier of not touching and getting a bit closer, making her realize in a romantic way. The next place a woman wants to be touched is her shoulders. Now, a lot of people ask where exactly to touch on her shoulders. If you go too high, it's like the ultimate friend zone, and you don't want that. If you go too low, it's weird and just don't do it. So instead, a good rule of thumb is around her shoulder blade, a little below the shoulder blade. That's good. There's something so protective when a guy just places his arm or hand on her shoulders, maybe if you're guiding her or leaning in to talk to her or something like that. Wow, that's going to give her butterflies and make her feel like you're protecting her, and it's adorable. This is really one of my favorites. To be perfectly honest, it's incredibly powerful. The next place a woman wants to be touched, and this isn't necessarily a place but more of a tip, is simply to sit next to her. Again, if you're not in a relationship, don't put your arm around her. That's better when you are in a relationship. You want to avoid coming off as weird. But sit next to her, as if touching her when you're sitting beside her. This is something she'll notice, even if she doesn't say anything about it. But it's adorable and cute, and it makes her think, wow, maybe he likes me, he's sitting next to me. So, don't be afraid to sit close enough to touch. The next place a woman wants to be touched by a man, and again, this is more of a tip than a specific place, is to hug her. Even when you're in a relationship, there's something so sweet about a sincere hug. Everyone wants to be hugged, and there's a whole science behind how it makes you feel good. So, just use that, okay? Don't be afraid to hug her, and that's something you can do even when you're not in a relationship. It really creates that closeness and shows interest. My next tip on how to touch her and simply excite her is to offer her your arm. It's something that not many people do these days, but they should, because it's adorable. This is especially true if she's wearing high heels or if the ground is a bit uneven. Offering her your arm is adorable, and again, it shows that you're protective, it shows that you're masculine, confident, and strong. And she might, who knows, feel a bit of your arm laughs, which would also be nice, but don't think too much about it, just offer her your arm, and it's adorable. Here's something I want you to remember. Being a gentleman is always romantic. It's adorable, especially because a lot of people don't do it anymore, and so you stand out when you're a gentleman. In my academy, when I teach you how to win the love of your life, one thing I always emphasize is that kind men are the most attractive men. That's the kind of man a woman wants to spend her life loving. So, the simple act of offering your arm is really adorable. Another thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through this list of places where a woman wants to be touched is that it's important to know how to touch her and where to touch her. This is huge. It's a big step. However, you also need to know how to get to the point where you can touch her, right? You need to know how to attract her attention, how to build that attraction, and how to make her want you to touch her. Otherwise, you're just going to come off as weird, and you don't want that. So, how do you get to that point where she wants you to touch her? And how do you do this with the kind of woman you truly desire? You need to learn how to attract her attention, how to really build that attraction, and then court her. All these things are what make her want you to touch her. I know how overwhelming this can seem. There are a lot of variables and a lot of room for error. This is particularly true if you've failed in the past and felt embarrassed, rejected, and disappointed. That's why I created my academy for you. Now, you have a single place to learn how to find the sweet and kind love of your life, make her fall deeply in love with you, so you can come home to her sweet kisses every night. I take all the guesswork out for you, so you don't have to worry about what to do or not do. Instead, you have a map that leads you to the success in love that you deserve. Now, we've talked about how to touch a woman before you're in a relationship. Let's now talk about how and where to touch her when you are in a relationship. Now, I don't mean married yet, I mean when you're dating. The first place to touch her when you're in a relationship is her hair. It's really cute when a guy strokes her hair or simply brushes her hair back, maybe tucking it behind her ear. These little things make her feel really feminine and pretty, like wow, he likes my haircut, and it's really, really cute. Obviously, don't overdo it and gauge how she reacts. Some women don't like their hair being touched, especially if they've spent a lot of time making it look nice for that date with you. So, gauge how she reacts to it, but in general, it's a very, very cute way to touch her. The next place a woman wants to be touched is her face. Now, you can do this, like when you're kissing, you can touch her face, you can simply place your hand on her cheek. It's just adorable. These little caresses on the face make her completely swoon and definitely turn her on. The next place where you can touch a woman is her waist. Now, like, if you're just standing next to each other, place your hand on her waist. If you're hugging, maybe you can wrap your arms around her waist. Or, maybe when you're kissing, you can place your hands on her waist. It's something very affectionate for her. It makes her feel close to you and again, just helps her feel feminine and see you as very masculine. Every time you make her feel feminine, she'll see you as more masculine. The next thing you can do is place your arm around her. Again, this should be obvious, but in case I haven't mentioned it, when you place your hand on her back while kissing her or like, you're just spending time with her, like going somewhere, just put your arm around her. Let her feel your strength. It's very affectionate and will, like, elevate that connection between you two. The next place where you can touch a woman is her hip. I know there are a million different connotations to this, but if you're already in a relationship with her, don't be afraid to touch her hip. Maybe when you're walking past her, you can, like, pull her closer by her waist or something like that. It really boosts the attraction she feels for you and increases that desire in a relationship. So, those are the places where a woman wants to be touched, but I want you to remember, and I think I mentioned this earlier, what you do now really matters. Now is the time to invest in your future and invest in yourself, so you don't have to worry about getting everything right or making a mistake in love. You can learn all about how to make her fall in love with you in minimal time so that you can finally enjoy the kind of relationship you've always wanted and the kind of relationship she has always wanted too.